Next, we have a panel about smart cities B2C business, wearables and connected consumers. It's estimated that there are over 10 billion connected devices today, and this is projected to reach 50 billion by 2020. While enterprises and governments are proactively investing in wearable and connected devices, consumers are slower to adopt them. Yet IoT is an integral connection between institutions and consumers and a valuable data collection point. This panel discusses the challenges and lessons learned from implementing consumer IoT initiatives and the new technologies and applications being developed to engage and improve the quality of life for citizens. Let's welcome on stage Mr. Yusuf Khalili, Senior Partner and Smart City Practice and Head of the UAE Government Sector at NextGen Advisory Group, and his panel members to begin this discussion.
Hello, everyone. Long day so far? Going well? I'm pleased to be here moderating the session. Let me introduce myself. NextGen Advisory Group is a smart city and smart government transformation boutique consultancy firm born here in the UAE in 2007. We are the strategic and exclusive consulting advisor for the Dubai government and Smart Dubai initiative from the beginning of the initiative till now. And we're quite pleased to see how the initiative has been moving, gaining attraction in the city and onboarding many private sector and government entities. With me here on the panel will be Colonel Khalid Razooqi, one of the main members of the initiative from the start, and he is the Director General of the Smart Services Department at Dubai Police. Welcome, Colonel Khalid. And we have Ralph Cohen, who's just made it on time from London, an IoT expert who's been around, worked for many companies, including Apple, and now investing in IoT and advising on IoT matters. Welcome, Ralph. So, gentlemen, we discussed briefly outside some of the new trends in the industry, and I'm going to start with you actually, Ralph, to talk about this whole notion of wearables and how it fits within a smart city concept. You know, if you've been around here in the audience, you would have seen that Smart Dubai is actually building a state-of-the-art smart city platform, the first of its kind in the world, actually. And within that platform, there's an infrastructure layer, and within that, there's an IoT layer. So there will be an integrated layer for the city as the platform is being built. Now, devices and wearables are applications that connect to the platform. And there's a hype around all sorts of wearables. Wearables we have for fun, and wearables like or sensors and wearables within the industrial sector. And then in the middle, there are vertical use cases like security, safety, there's healthcare, and mobility, and so forth. So tell us more where you see the role today of wearables within the notion of a smart city, and where do you see the evolution of this?
Yeah, thanks. So first, thanks very much for having me. I'm really glad to actually have made it from London straight into here. Just a side note, my Twitter account is wrong on the screen, so if you want to tweet me, this is Raph Crouan, just my surname and name, easy. The IoT world has evolved, as you just mentioned, a lot over the last few years. We've seen a lot of buzz, a lot of hype around wearables, which was the sort of the visible part of the iceberg, really. And there's been a lot of conversation around how can you change the lives of people through wearables. And of course, it started with fitness bands. It started with the sport aspect to it because it's easy. It was the cheapest sensor to be embedded in wearables. There's a great way to look at the IoT business, which is a landscape done by Matt Turk, who's a VC in Europe, actually. And you look it up. It's called IoT Landscape, as simple as that. It started to look at it in 2013, which is not that long ago. This was like a very small table with a couple of startups in there, and now it doesn't fit on 2 pages. That's how big the segment is now. So from hype to reality, I think now we've seen many numbers from smart city to smart jewelries to smart industries to smart everything. The key numbers is 2020, 1920, 19 billions or whatever that is globally. At the end of it, as you mentioned, the really key applications that are making a difference are those that are very specifically focusing on a vertical. Healthcare is one of them, and there's many different examples. We've, Startup Bootcamp, we are a global accelerator. We range, vertical specifics, and we're looking at about 1,000 startups every year across the world. And, I'm coming back from various different trips between the US and Asia and in India, and we saw incredible technologies on IoT, life-changing technologies, patented technologies around, connected devices that can emit the real sort of key non-intrusive technology to be, looking at the glucose in your blood without having to use a needle. And because of the reduction in cost in all those sensors, this now comes at a fraction of a price of any big companies that were selling that in the past. So those are life-changing technologies that can, allow the masses to be adopting those.
I want to come back to the point of how we manage those devices through systems, because it's an ecosystem that has to work right. But before we go to that, Colonel Khalid, you've been a founding member of the Smart Dubai Initiative from the early days. I had the pleasure of working with you closely. And the city has architected a blueprint that had within it a fundamental part around IoT. And before we go into these safety applications and how police is using that, can you tell us a little bit more how you see this whole layer of IoT within infrastructure helping of spurring innovation in the city around devices?
First of all, I would like to thank you very much for having us. And in Dubai, as you know, that we are working together with the government to have a standard on IoT to build the smartest city in the world. This is a big challenge, that how we can integrate the huge number of information from different sectors and how to build on top of that, on the IoT, a standard sensor that's going to be available to everybody, even the private sector going to use it. So we're working now to have a standard on this, and as you know, Dubai also have launched the open data law, which going to classify the data and how we can integrate and exchanging information between different kind of sectors.
Great. So if I go back to Ralph then and talk about a product life cycle. So devices and wearables are products. So there's a whole dilemma around how you manage a product life cycle and go to market. But more importantly and fundamentally, the whole ecosystem. And within a smart city, if we have the IoT functionality within the smart city platform and the standards and policies Khalid talked about now, how do you make sure it all works together?
Yeah, so there's a few components around this. The first one, I'll take that actually very early on. When you look at innovation, a lot of people have great ideas. Not that many people are able to actually deliver on those ideas and execute on the ideas. So that's the first thing we bet on as people, the ability to have a great team to execute. It's important in the ecosystem because to get a product to market, particularly when you're talking physical device, it takes a lot of effort and commitment. So that's down to the people that, to deliver that promise. I'm sure our friends from Fiverr and Startup will have talked about this extensively today, as well as smart entrepreneurs that you'd mentioned earlier. Those are people that, day in, day out work there, really hard to get their product to market. The second thing is the IoT has brought back hardware to the scene, right? Because, as I said, devices are now easier accessible. The ecosystem of hardware makers, Maker Labs, Fast Lab. We have a couple of examples just down the hall of people that helping those ecosystems to grow by giving access to 3D printers and key sensors and development kits for free, allows that ecosystem to grow and indeed distribute new products to the market. But they are prototypes still. Then you got the next phase, which consists of integrating the software and the hardware, because a dumb device doesn't do much. You need to have that complementarity. And of course, everybody knows the value in an IoT solution is not the hardware itself. It's the data that comes out of the hardware, as well as the whole analytics that you make out of that data. Yep. To date, a lot of people are getting tons of data, and never before we had so much data produced because of now the number of sensors that we have. What really matters, as you guys are trying to do, is now to make sense of that data, leverage it, and use it to make a difference. So help people have a better infrastructure, get better safety, get quicker on the scene for whatever solution there needs to be. And down the line, if we go back to the consumer aspect of it as well, it's delivering that product, shipping it, and putting it on shelves, selling it with retail. So manufacturing is getting a lot easier. You have a lot more access to manufacturing plants in China or in India or locally as well for cheaper and smaller batches. Supply chain, tons of people are helping now in the supply chain aspect, so it can be one of the key sort of stopping point for any hardware companies or IoT companies. It's getting better. And last but not least, distributors. And that is down to local players to help distribute the products depending on what they are, either through public services administration or directly to big shopping malls that can distribute consumer products. So the whole chain is getting a lot faster at distributing those products. The consumer are adopting them faster as well. But it's down to us to make sure that the whole ecosystem piece is in place. So from the creation up to the analytics, so we can get a full solution down to.
True, but then the use case itself is what defines the success of how many devices and wearables will be used. So the healthcare applications you mentioned are key. These are fundamental. It impacts the health and the living styles of people. But going back to other applications, Colonel Khalid, you had some safety applications. Tell us more about some of the cool stuff. I always remember you with that cool glass picture of you snapping people turning on the wrong side of the road. So is that still on?
Yeah, actually, Dubai Police were the first government in the world who were using the Google Glass to take a violation against careless drivers.
Yeah.
So we violate the people issuing a ticket right away. So the police officer just wear the Google Glass and taking a picture of the violation and gonna be direct to the traffic system. This is a part that we have been using it. It's very simple, but it has a huge effect on the load that on the police officers. We used to write, issue fines on the normal papers. Unfortunately, the Google Glass had been stopped producing by the company, but it didn't stop us. So we start using other wearable devices. One of the services that is available to public is the SOS. As you know, as a security perspective, the most important thing is to provide a service to people on spot in the shortest time. So if there is any case, the individual, he just go and press the SOS button in his wearable device, like a watch, or his mobile application, and we can detect the location of the person, and we can reach him within minutes. This kind of thing that it has effect on the safety and security. The other part we didn't forget is the blind people. Those people, we cannot use those kind of devices, but we made it to them very easy. So they just grab their iPhone or Android device and they just shake it. We receive the alert from the same SOS application, and we can reach them at the same time. This can an examples of the things that have been used using this kind of technologies. As you know, Dubai, we have more than 200 nationalities, different languages, different culture. The application that we built is very simple and easy. So, for example, if you had an accident between two cars, the only thing you do is, instead of calling police cars to reach you, you just go and take a snapshot of the accident that you have, and you send it through the application, and you're going to receive the traffic report within minutes. This kind of thing that help a lot on the police officers and even with the people. And it has a huge effect on this kind of thing. There's a lot of examples, not just in Dubai Police, other government covering the environment effect, the security, the health, and the other concerned governments.
Mobility and traffic.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, I have to mention that Dubai Police has won many awards for this application and for all the services you have. And I think I haven't personally heard of any police government agency providing such seamless experiences. Going back to you, Ralph, tell us a little bit on the future. What does the future hold for us within the wearables arena?
Yeah. So what's interesting is the current trends of wearable is actually accelerating. So, the fitness era of fitness band is done. We've seen many examples, and it's become a commodity now. You got, the Chinese guys, Xiaomi is producing one for $12, right? So it's done. What we're looking at in the next generation is, as we said, how can we impact and go further? And so some of the innovation that we've seen so far is actually integrating various different types of technologies. IoT being a catchphrase would, encompass many different things and impact many different industries. You mentioned briefly smart industries as well. What we saw right now is people working on integrating into artificial intelligence devices. Because, of course, that gives them that extra sort of smartness, of course. It's even more of a smart device. And also allows to get a little bit further down the line in terms of distributing the assets, the data, and everything that comes with it. So that's one angle that we see IoT and AI. Another one which is emerging, and I'm not really sure what's going just yet, so it's to be watched, is the enablers of, ex-Bitcoin now blockchain technology integrating, IoT solutions. So it's a bit further out, not specifically around wearables, and still impacting the consumer at the end. So it's those two trends that we're seeing coming through. And on the side of this, any other new sort of, verticals that are impacting.
Interesting you mentioned the artificial intelligence. The use of robotics, both in industrial as well as safety, and maybe other applications, has been picking up. Colonel Khalid, I know you have plans in Dubai Police around artificial intelligence and robotics. Tell us more, what's coming our way?
Actually, we're working, we have a plan till 2020. As you know, that Dubai, we're going to host the Expo on that year. So we're working now to produce what you call it a robotic. So I know it's a challenge to everybody. We do have a machine, and we do have the software and the intelligent IoT, and how are we going to combine them? So we're working now in phase one. We have introduced our robot in Las Gitex, and currently we're working now with different vendors to how to integrate this kind of technology to interact with the people, reducing the time and effort on the police officers. We do have a plan till 2020 to implement this kind of technologies.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's amazing. I want to go back then, Ralph. Tell us about some of the companies that are introducing devices today for leisure, for entertainment. We are seeing a lot of watches in the market, the fitness bands and all of these. And looking at my family and friends and everybody, I don't see that they buy them, they're happy with them initially, but they don't pick up usage, and they throw them quite fast. What's really behind this? Is it a design? Is it an ecosystem, lack of services? Is it the fact that it's not crucial to your life? The whole notion of Smart Dubai, for instance, is to make our lives easy and happy living. But I haven't yet connected the dots around how could a smartwatch or a fitness band, okay, well-being and health is understood. But other than that, I don't see these picking up. What's your view? Is it just a Dubai dilemma or everywhere else? Or?
I think that the first thing we need to understand is that most of the people that we see adopting those technologies are early adopters, geeks, right? And those tend to have the attention span of a child when it comes to using those devices. So
yeah, I always make fun of Khalid, and he keeps changing those smartwatches, and I'm still finding it difficult to catch up.
Yeah, and it's not surprising because those are the people that those technology enablers allow to sort of test, to get feedback and everything. To go back to your question, I think one of the game changer and that people are trying to do now is how do you capture your audience or retain your audience around a product, and it's about gamification. It's about engagement, it's about gamification, and it's about impact. So we talked about the impact when it comes to clearly life-changing solutions. That's something that people will keep. But also the technology evolving so fast makes it really hard to actually keep a device that, after a year and a half probably doesn't exist anymore because the infrastructure that was based on that 2 years ago has really evolved into the next phase. So we go back to that ecosystem question, which is how do you build a solution that's sustainable, meaning it's got impact, it's got all the stack of, sort of software solution, integration of hardware, devices that can bring back the data, and then the analytics on top. If you got the whole thing, then the people can actually leverage that on a longer term basis. And the last thing is, to some extent, unfortunately, we're all kids, and gamification is an element of sustainability. You get to have people playing with it, engaging with it, sharing with friends, getting that, not only on fitness, which was the very first aspect, but many other ways. We talked a bit about kids tech, right? We talk about having more security around, your kids, around your playground, around things like this. There's question mark around, privacy, tracking people, bit of a difficulty. But also there's a question around, the legitimacy of making sure that you don't lose your kids in the mall, for example. Yeah. Those are things that are engaging enough for people to be, looking after those products.
And I think regulatory framework is important. So I know, for instance, in UAE, some of those solutions for tracking, and correct me, Khalid, if I'm wrong, are not yet authorized by TRA and other authorities. So there's also a discussion around how much do you want to give and take around privacy versus security, and it's always a dilemma. I just want to test the audience. How many in the audience are using wearables today? How many of you are wearing smartwatches?
Very few.
Yeah. Okay. And how many of you have tried them but stopped using them, like me?
Stuck them in a drawer.
Okay, here we go. That's the audience I like. Okay, so yeah, that's the challenge. I want to shift to the back to the governmental use and the connecting back to the smart city. Happy living for Dubai is a key factor. Health, well-being is a key factor. We've seen at GITEX some applications from the Dubai Health Authority. I know you're also within the same group of users. Diabetes, you spoke about it. It's 1 of 3 or 1 of 4 in UAE is diagnosed with either type 1 or type 2 diabetes. When I discussed with the guys how soon can we have those glucometers attached to phones, or they said it's also about making sure about the regulation, about making that those companies are certified. So many of those companies, they take years to be certified by the FDA, and before they're certified by the FDA, they cannot be certified here. You came from London. How does that process happen in Europe, for instance, and how do you come over such obstacles of legislations?
So that's one of the rare good things about Europe. We have a central sort of way of validating and certifying at the European level. So you got the EU label, you got the FDA label, and you got the Asian label. So we have companies that are, specialized in certification, that are helping every single one of our companies to make sure they get to market faster by selecting the regions they want to go and having that certification process, very much engaged early on time. European-wide, it's easy because you have one certification layer to have, but certification is not easy because depending on what you're certifying, legislation changes, right? So if it's a Bluetooth chip, if it's a Wi-Fi chip, depending on what you're trying to certify, there's variations. But yes, as European level, it's fairly standard and easy. You got the EU stamp, which takes, depending on the product, between 6 to 8 months. It's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Yeah. Khalid, anything from your side you want to add around legislations, especially in the safety and security? Are you driving towards that at the national level, local level? How do you see that?
As you know that we are here in Dubai, we are working now with the smart city to have a law that regulate this kind of privacy issue and the concerning of tracking people. On the other hand, also on the federal, I think by the end, this kind of technology is going to be available to everybody. Those kind of concerns, I think everybody knows about it. The way of privacy is by your hand. I mean, you have the choice, even using this kind of technology, and you can enable tracking or disable it. So by the end, I think we have an aim to have a law to regulate using those wearable devices, application, etc., and how it's going to be integrated to each other and to provide a better service to the consumer, right?
I'm going to tell you about a joke about Khalid. We're on a group on WhatsApp. So every time I see a car taking the shoulder, I take a picture and I send it to him and I say, look, this motorbike or this car is doing this. He goes, you took this picture and you were driving? I said, yes. I said, I will give you the fine. So how can we use the wearables if we're on the go? Like, we're all police. Tell us about this we're all police application. He said, this is the place where I need to upload the photo, apparently.
Yeah, actually, we have more than 150 services on our mobile application. One of the services, we call it We Are All Police. So anybody who's living in Dubai, he can take a picture, but not while driving, for any violation, and even to send us a picture of any information that you think gonna help us provide a better service and security in Dubai. And actually, you know what, Yusuf, we're receiving huge number of those pictures and even information that help us a lot solving a lot of cases in Dubai.
Wow. So that's the right place. I shouldn't be driving. So I'm on the left lane, a motorbike comes on the left, I should just brake and take a picture and then I move on. Good. So I'm going to go to the data aspect. We spoke about devices, ecosystem, go-to-market. You touched on the data law. So the data law of Dubai, I was very involved in that initiative. And I know there is a privacy policy within the data law. But with those devices offering us the chance to be anywhere, literally take information and send it, exactly like you just mentioned, if I upload this data to your application, Kuluna Shurta, we're all police, how do I know that I'm not violating the privacy of the person I'm taking a picture of his car or her car or her violation? What protects me?
We always put instructions before using this kind of services. So for instance, when we are all police, whenever you take a picture, we always mention that you shouldn't take picture while driving and you shouldn't take picture of human beings and people. This will protect both parties and as a privacy issue. And as you know that we do have a law and everybody should know about it. This kind of thing that's going to protect both parties and provide a better service to the people. And by the end, I think this kind of regulation is going to be a habit within the normal daily life of the people.
Great. Ralph, any thoughts?
We've had many conversations around privacy lately through some of the companies that we identified that had very deep connections at every level with the people wearing their device. And not only wearing them, but we tend to see now people embedded, things, cyborgs as they call themselves, or some sort of sensors attached to their body. So it's only the beginning of the story. We're going to have more and more of those. And depending on the regions, on the countries, the regulation will vary, of course. And unfortunately, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for those kind of things, which will make that, market expansion difficult for people. What we advise to all our companies is be mindful of your market, know exactly what target audience you have, know which country you want to be or region you want to be, and understand the regulations behind them. Because you're going to be impacting people's life, but you're also going to have to be, of course, respecting the regulations on place. So yeah, you have to know that ahead of time rather than just rush through a Kickstarter campaign saying I want to distribute that around the world and realize, whoops, can't do it anymore.
I violated that.
So